Hello, I am trial attorney Neil Redmond coming at you from New York City. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about something called cash advances. And cash advances are situations where a client who has a personal injury lawsuit is able to basically borrow money against their lawsuit. And there are companies that you may have heard out there. A very popular one is called Oasis. There's another one called Peachtree. And there are many, many other companies that do this. And I don't necessarily encourage people to take a cash advance on their case, but there are situations where many of our clients have no other choice because they have no other income, and they're forced to take a cash advance because they're not able to work and therefore not able to make any money to support themselves and their families. And so oftentimes it becomes the only way that a person can actually have the money to continue to support themselves while the lawsuit is pending. Now, in certain circumstances, for example, if you're in a car accident or you have an accident on the job and you get workers' compensation benefits, those benefits generally pay for your lost wages and your medical expenses. And so in those situations, it's often not necessary to ask for a cash advance. Now, the cash advance companies are a little tricky because they are taking a gamble that they are going to get paid off. The loan or the cash advance that you take is going to be paid at a future time based on a settlement or a trial verdict in your case. And because of that risk they're taking, in other words, if, for example, your case was to go south and you were to lose the case, there is no money for them to be paid back with. And it's because of that they take that risk, that they are able to charge very high interest rates and very high costs for actually just originating the cash advance. So I personally am not involved with that business. In other words, as a lawyer, I am not allowed to make loans to my clients, and I'm not allowed to have any affiliation with the cash advance companies. We have certain cash advance companies that we work with that we sort of steer business to in order to be able to have a relationship. And then at the end of the case, if for example, the settlement was not as much as we had hoped, oftentimes the companies that we work with will kind of give us a break, or not us, but give the client a bit of a break on the payback in order to allow the case to settle. So these are the dynamics that are going on during that type of a situation where a person is asking for or needs a cash advance, and it's really no fault of their own that they are not able to get money to support themselves during the pendency of the lawsuit, which oftentimes can take many years. And because the defendants are not willing to settle the case early and not willing to front any of these expenses that they will eventually, most of the time, end up having to pay at the end of the case, they are going to end up having to pay more money because they refuse to settle early. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, if you were to have a slip and fall accident, or you were to get injured on the job, in any case, if your injuries are very clearly the fault of another party, and you have significant injuries, maybe several surgeries, and it's clear by most standards that the case is going to be worth $1 million or several million, and because of the fact that the insurance company for the defendant is refusing to make an early settlement with you, you have to take out a cash advance and you have to pay interest on that at the end of the case. Well, we're just going to turn around and tell that insurance company for that defendant, listen, you've got to pay this back because that was the cost of this person to continue to live and to continue to pay their bills. And so that's going to cause the value of the case to go up. You know, sometimes the defendants try to portray people taking out these loans as, you know, sort of doing it as some type of, I don't know, like they won the lottery or they're using it as an ATM. I often hear that type of comment from a defense attorney, but in my experience, it's not that way, and we don't encourage people to take cash advances. It's not for going on a vacation. It's for actually paying the bills so that you can live during the pendency of your trial. And it's really the only vehicle or only way for a person to do that, other than taking out a loan on their own. And oftentimes that's not possible or practical. The person might not have a great credit rating and so can't just get a loan. And oftentimes what the person has done is just run up their credit cards to pay their bills. And of course, everyone knows credit card interest rates are very high as well. And you do not have any type of recourse if you have high credit bills. I mean, you could possibly declare bankruptcy, but that's another nightmare because your credit is shot for 7 years after that. So you can't get a loan and everything becomes much more difficult. And so the cash advance ends up being sort of a necessary evil. And sometimes the interest rates on the cash advance, they're usually the best company that we work with charges 15% interest every 6 months, and that is compounded. So if you to spell that out as far as the payback, generally, for an example, if a person took out a $10,000 loan, just to give you an example with a round number, and the interest is 15%, 15% of $10,000 is $1,500. So generally speaking, when you take out a loan, there's usually, I should keep calling it a cash advance because that's the technical name for it. It seems like a loan, but it's really, that's not the way it's supposed to be referred to, because a loan is something that must be paid back under all circumstances, while a cash advance is something that might not be paid back if you were to lose the case, like I said. But you know, there's chance, the chance of losing the case is probably pretty low. The chance of maybe not getting as much of a settlement as you would have hoped, that is another story. You know, there's a lot of factors that go into determining if a case is going to settle for the amount that one would hope. But getting back to the calculation, so basically, if you were to take out a $10,000 cash advance, there is that initial fee of $500, which is added to the $10,000. So at the end of 6 months, you would owe the $500 plus the $1,500 interest, and then so that would be $12,000 that would be owed at the end of 6 months. Then now what they do is they compound that. Compounding means now you have to pay interest on the total amount. It's not just on the initial $10,000. So the next 6 months, you're going to have to pay 15% interest on $12,000, right? So I could maybe do the math in my head. You've got the initial $1,500 on top of the, plus you're going to pay 15% of $2,000, which would be an additional $250. So you've got, if you took the loan out for a year, the additional interest would be, let's see, $1,500 plus another $300 would be on top of that, plus the original $1,500.